At exactly 6:12 a.m., a 19-year-old boy stood on a cracked sidewalk outside a nearly empty bus station with $42 in his pocket and everything he owned stuffed into a tired, black backpack. The sky was still dark, and the air felt heavy, like something important was about to happen. His hands were shaking, not from the cold, but from the realization that in the next few minutes, he was about to make the biggest decision of his entire life. A single thought kept looping in his head over and over again. If I don't leave now, I never will. Most people think the hardest part of traveling is the money, or the planning, or the long flights. But the truth is, the hardest part is walking away from the life you already know. It means leaving behind familiar streets, familiar faces, and the version of yourself that everyone else expects you to be. For him, staying felt safer, but it also felt like slowly disappearing. Back home, every day looked the same. Same houses, same people, same conversations. He woke up to an alarm he hated, went to a job that barely paid the bills, and came home exhausted, not from working hard, but from feeling stuck. The people around him weren't bad people. They were just tired. Tired of hoping, tired of dreaming, tired of believing that something better was possible. Whenever he talked about wanting more, about seeing the world, about building a different kind of life, people would smile politely and say things like, "That's not realistic," or "People like us don't do that," or "You should just be grateful for what you have." At first, he believed them. After all, they were older. They had more experience. They must know how the world works. But deep down, a quiet voice kept whispering something different. It said, there has to be more than this. One night, after another long and forgettable day, he lay on his bed staring at the ceiling. His phone was in his hand, glowing in the dark as he scrolled through photos and videos of places he had never been, mountains covered in snow, blue oceans stretching to the horizon, cities full of lights and energy, and people chasing dreams. And that's when it hit him like a punch to the chest. The world was huge, and his life was small, not because he wasn't capable, but because he had never left the box he was put in. That night, he didn't sleep much. He kept thinking about the years passing by, about waking up 10 years from now in the same bed, going to the same job, wondering what his life could have been if he had just been a little braver. That fear was worse than the fear of leaving. So when the sun came up, he packed his backpack, bought the cheapest one-way bus ticket he could afford, and walked out the door without telling anyone. The first few days were not glamorous. There were no perfect Instagram moments, no beautiful hotels, just long hours of sitting, waiting, and wondering if he had made a terrible mistake. He slept on hard benches. He ate cheap food. Sometimes he didn't eat at all. At one point, sitting alone in a crowded bus station, he pulled out his wallet and counted his money. $10. That was all he had left. His stomach dropped. Reality hit him. This wasn't a movie. There was no guarantee everything would work out. He could fail. He could run out of money. He could have to go home embarrassed and broke. As he sat there staring at the floor, a woman walked by, stopped, and turned around. She looked at him for a moment, then reached into her bag and handed him a sandwich and a bottle of water. "You look like you need this," she said softly. He didn't know why, but that small act almost made him cry. Because back home, no one ever noticed when he was struggling. That moment changed something inside him. It was the first time he realized that the world wasn't just cold and uncaring. Sometimes it was kind in ways you never expect. And that wasn't the last time it happened. A few days later, a truck driver gave him a ride across to states when he couldn't afford a ticket. A cafe owner let him sit for hours without buying anything and still treated him like a valued customer. A family he met in Mexico invited him into their home, fed him dinner, and laughed with him even though they barely spoke the same language. Everywhere he went, strangers became helpers. And slowly, his fear began to fade. With every new place, he felt like he was meeting a new version of himself. In one city, he was brave. In another, he was curious. In another, he was confident. Away from home, no one knew his past. No one judged him by who he used to be. He was free to become whoever he wanted. He met people who completely changed the way he saw life. A man who worked from his laptop while traveling the world. A woman who had escaped a painful past and built a successful business. A street musician who owned almost nothing but smiled more than anyone he had ever met. None of them were special. They were just willing to take a risk. One night, sitting alone on a beach, watching the waves crash under a sky full of stars, he felt something he had never felt before. Peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because for the first time, he was exactly where he was supposed to be. And in that quiet moment, he realized something powerful. He wasn't running away from his old life. One night, sitting alone on a beach, watching the waves crash under a sky full of stars, he felt something he had never felt before. Peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because for the first time, he was exactly where he was supposed to be. And in that quiet moment, he realized something powerful. He wasn't running away from his old life. He was running toward a better one. And for the first time, he realized that the better life wasn't a place on a map or a destination he could point to. It was something deeper, something he had carried inside all along, buried under years of fear, doubt, and other people's expectations. It was freedom. Freedom to make choices that mattered to him. Freedom to speak, to act, to move without waiting for permission. Freedom to wake up and feel alive instead of trapped. Every step he took on that journey felt like shedding a layer of the old him, the person who had stayed quiet, stayed small, stayed invisible. He noticed everything he had missed before. The smell of fresh bread from a street vendor. The laughter of children playing games he didn't understand. The sunlight hitting buildings in a way that made the city feel alive. Every small moment was teaching him something new. He realized that growth didn't come from comfort, it came from stepping into the unknown, from being uncomfortable, from getting lost and finding himself anyway. The better life wasn't about escaping his past, it was about building a new version of himself. He could still carry the lessons of where he had been, but now he had the courage to choose what he wanted next. Every fear he had once believed was permanent had been faced and overcome. Every limit he had accepted was now something he could climb over. And then it hit him: running toward a better life didn't mean a perfect life. It meant showing up every day, making mistakes, learning, and moving forward anyway. It meant being brave enough to face the unknown, curious enough to explore it, and patient enough to let it shape him. For the first time, he smiled knowing the journey wasn't over. The road ahead was still long and uncertain, but now he had something stronger than fear. He had courage, resilience, and the knowledge that no matter what happened, he could keep moving towards something better because that better life wasn't somewhere he could go, it was who he had become. So I'll ask you this: if fear wasn't holding you back, where would you go? What's the one place, one step, or one dream you've been too scared to take? Hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe, because the journey doesn't end here. Your next step might be the one that changes everything.